Part 1, Lecture 3. When we attempt to learn what is called thinking and what calls for thinking, are we not getting lost in the reflection that thinks on thinking? Yet all along our way, a steady light is cast on thinking. This light, however, is not introduced by the lamp of reflection. It issues from thinking itself, and only from there. Thinking has this enigmatic property, that it itself is brought to its own light, though only if and only as long as it is thinking, and keeps clear of persisting in ratiocination about ratio. Thinking is thinking when it answers to what is most thought-provoking. In our thought-provoking time, what is most thought-provoking shows itself in the fact that we are still not thinking. For the moment, what this sentence says is no more than an assertion. It has the form of a statement, and this statement we shall now deal with. We shall, for now, discuss 2 points. First, the tone of the assertion, and then its character as a statement. The assertion claims, what is most thought-provoking in our thought-provoking time is that we are still not thinking. What we call thought-provoking in the condition of someone gravely ill, for example, is that it gives us cause for worry. We call thought-provoking what is dark, threatening, and gloomy, and generally what is adverse. When we say thought-provoking, we usually have in mind immediately something injurious, that is, negative. Accordingly, a statement that speaks of a thought-provoking time, and even of what is most thought-provoking in it, is tuned from the start in a negative key. It has in view only the adverse and somber traits of the age. It sticks exclusively to those phenomena that are good for nothing and provoke every form of nothingness, the nihilistic phenomena. And it necessarily assumes that at the core of those phenomena there is a lack, according to our proposition, lack of thought. This tune is familiar to us all ad nauseum from the standard appraisals of the present age. A generation ago, it was the decline of the West. Today, we speak of loss of center. People everywhere trace and record the decay and the destruction, the immediate annihilation of the world. We are surrounded by a special breed of repertorial novels that do nothing but wallow in such deterioration and depression. On the one hand, that sort of literature is much easier to produce than to say something that is essential and truly thought out. But on the other hand, it is already getting tiresome. The world, men find, is not just out of joint, but tumbling away into the nothingness of absurdity. Nietzsche, who from his supreme peak saw far ahead of it all, as early as the 1880s had for it the simple, because thoughtful words, the wasteland grows. It means the devastation is growing wider. Devastation is more than destruction. Devastation is more unearthly than destruction. Destruction only sweeps aside all that has grown up or been built up so far, but devastation blocks all future growth and prevents all building. Devastation is more unearthly than mere destruction. Mere destruction sweeps aside all things, including even nothingness, while devastation, on the contrary, establishes and spreads everything that blocks and prevents. The African Sahara is only one kind of wasteland. The devastation of the earth can easily go hand in hand with a guaranteed supreme living standard for man, and just as easily with the organized establishment of a uniform state of happiness for all men. Devastation can be the same as both, and can haunt us everywhere in the most unearthly way, by keeping itself hidden. Devastation does not just mean a slow sinking into the stands. Devastation is the high-velocity expulsion of Mnemosyne. The words, the wasteland grows, come from another realm than the current appraisals of our age. Nietzsche said, the wasteland grows, nearly 3/4 of a century ago, and he added, woe to him who hides wastelands within. Now it seems as though our assertion that what is most thought-provoking in our thought-provoking time is that we are still not thinking, we're part of the same chorus of voices that disparage modern Europe as sick and our age is on the decline. Let us listen more closely. The assertion says, what is most thought-provoking is that we are still not thinking. The assertion says neither that we are no longer thinking, nor does it say roundly that we're not thinking at all. The words still not, spoken thoughtfully, suggest that we are already on our way toward thinking, presumably from a great distance, not only on our way toward thinking as a conduct someday to be practiced, but on our way within thinking, on the way of thinking. Our assertion then casts a bright ray of hope into that obfuscation which seems not only to oppress the world from somewhere, but which men are almost dragging in by force. It is true that our assertion calls the present age the thought-provoking age. What we have in mind with this word, and without any disparaging overtones, is that which gives us food for thought, which is what wants to be thought about. What is thought-provoking, so understood, need in no way be what causes us to worry or even perturbs us. Joyful things, too, and beautiful and mysterious and gracious things give us food for thought. These things may be even more thought provoking than all the rest which we otherwise, and usually without much thought, call thought provoking. These things will give us food for thought if only we do not reject the gift by regarding everything that is joyful, beautiful, and gracious as the kind of thing which should be left to feeling and experience and kept out of the winds of thought. Only after we have let ourselves become involved with the mysterious and gracious things as those which properly give food for thought, only then can we take thought also of how we should regard the malice of evil. What is most thought-provoking, then, could be something lofty, perhaps even the highest thing there is for man, provided man still is the being who is insofar as he thinks in that thought appeals to him because his essential nature consists in memory, the gathering of thought. And what is most thought-provoking, especially when it is man's highest concern, may well be also what is most dangerous. Or do we imagine that a man could even in small ways encounter the essence of truth, the essence of beauty, the essence of grace, without danger? Therefore, when our assertion speaks of the thought-provoking age and of what is most thought-provoking in it, it is in no way tuned to a key of melancholy and despair. It is not drifting blindly toward the worst. It is not pessimistic. But neither is the assertion optimistic. It does not intend to offer quick comfort through artificially hopeful prospects of the best. But what alternative remains? Indecision between the two? Indifference? These least of all. For all indecision always feeds only on those matters between which it remains undecided. Even the man who believes his judgments to be beyond pessimism and optimism, or on their hither side, still always takes his bearing from optimism and pessimism, and guides himself by a mere variant of indifference. But pessimism and optimism both, together with the indifference and its variants which they support, stem from a peculiar relatedness of man to what we call history. This relatedness is difficult to grasp in its peculiarity, not because it is situated far away, but because it is now habitual to us. Our assertion, too, patently stems from a relatedness to the history and situation of man. What is the nature of that relatedness? This brings us to the second point about our assertion to which we must give attention. Summary and transition. After our transitional remarks on science, on learning, and on craft and handicraft, we returned to our theme. A reference to one-track thinking provided the transition. One-track thinking is something else than mere one-sided thinking. It has a greater reach and a loftier origin. In the present discourse concerning one-sided and one-track thinking, the word thinking means as much as having views. One might say, for instance, I think it'll snow tonight. But he who speaks that way is not thinking, he just has views on something. We must be very careful, however, not to regard this viewing as insignificant. All our daily life and all we do moves within what we have in view, and necessarily so. Even the sciences stay within it. And how is it one-sided? Is it not one of science's highest principles to explore its objects from as many sides as possible, even from all sides? Where's the one-sidedness in that? It lies precisely in the sphere of scientific exploration. Historical science may thoroughly explore a period, for instance, in every possible respect, and yet never explore what history is. It cannot do so, scientifically. By way of history, a man will never find out what history is, no more than a mathematician can show by way of mathematics, by means of his science, that is, and ultimately by mathematical formulae, what mathematics is. The essence of their sphere, history, art, poetry, language, nature, man, God, remains inaccessible to the sciences. At the same time, however, the sciences would consistently fall into the void if they did not operate within these spheres. The essence of the spheres I have named is the concern of thinking. As the sciences qua sciences have no access to this concern, it must be said that they are not thinking. Once this is put in words, it tends to sound at first as though thinking fancied itself superior to the sciences. Such arrogance, if and where it exists, would be unjustified. Thinking always knows essentially less than the sciences precisely because it operates where it could think the science of history, art, nature, language, and yet is still not capable of it. The sciences are fully entitled to their name, which means fields of knowledge, because they have infinitely more knowledge than thinking does. And yet there is another side of every science which that science as such can never reach, the essential nature and origin of its sphere, the essence and essential origin of the manner of knowing which it cultivates, and other things besides. The sciences remain, of necessity, on the one side. In this sense, they are one-sided, but in such a way that the other side nonetheless always appears as well. The science's one-sidedness retains its own many-sidedness, but that many-sidedness may expand to such proportions that the one-sidedness on which it is based no longer catches our eye. And when man no longer sees the one side as one side, he has lost sight of the other side as well. What sets the two sides apart, what lies between them, is covered up, so to speak. Everything is leveled to one level. Our minds hold views on all and everything, and view all things in the identical way. Today, every newspaper, every illustrated magazine, and every radio program offers all things in the identical way to uniform views. The subjects of science and the concern of thinking are dealt with in the identical manner. However, it would be a disastrous error for us to take the view that the mention of such phenomena merely served to characterize or even criticize our present age. We should fall victim to a disastrous self-deception if we were to take the view that a haughty contempt is all that is needed to let us escape from the imperceptible power of the uniformly one-sided view. On the contrary, the point is to discern what weird, unearthly things are here in the making. The one-sided view, which nowhere pays attention any longer to the essence of things, has puffed itself up into an all-sidedness, which in turn is masked so as to look harmless and natural. But this all-sided view, which deals in all and everything with equal uniformity and mindlessness, is only a preparation for what is really going on. For it is only on the plane of the one-sided uniform view that one-track thinking takes its start. It reduces everything to a univocity of concepts and specifications, the precision of which is not only corresponds to, but has the same essential origin as the precision of technological process. For the moment, we need to keep in mind only that one-track thinking is not coextensive with the one-sided view, but rather is building on it even while transforming it. A symptom, at first sight quite superficial, of the growing power of one-track thinking is the increase everywhere of designations consisting of abbreviations of words or combinations of their initials. Presumably no one here has ever given serious thought to what has already come to pass when you, instead of university, simply say you. You. That's like movie. True, the moving picture theater continues to be different from the Academy of the Sciences. Still, the designation U is not accidental, let alone harmless. It may even be in order that you go in and out of the U and study phi psi. But the question remains, what kind of order is heralded here in the spreading of this kind of language? Perhaps it is an order into which we are drawn, into which we are abandoned, by that which withdraws from us. And that is what we call most thought-provoking. According to our assertion, it expresses itself in that we are still not thinking. The assertion seems to be tuned in a negative and pessimistic key. However, thought-provoking here means what gives food for thought. Most thought-provoking is not only what gives most food for thought, in the sense that it makes the greatest demands on our thinking. Most thought-provoking is what inherently gathers and keeps within itself the greatest riches of what is thought-worthy and memorable. Our assertion says that we are still not thinking. This still not contains a peculiar reference to something still to come, of which we absolutely do not know whether it will come to us. This still not is of a unique kind which refuses to be equated with other kinds. For example, we can say, around midnight, that the sun has still not come up. We can say the same thing in early dawn. The still not in each case is different. But, it will be objected, it is different here only regarding the time span, the number of hours that pass between midnight and dawn, while the daily rising of the sun is certain. Certain in what sense? Perchance in the scientific sense? But since Copernicus, science no longer recognizes sunrises and sunsets. Scientifically, it has been unequivocally established that these things are illusions of the senses. By the common assumption of the customary view, this still not concerning the rising sun retains its truth at midnight and at dawn, but this truth can never be scientifically established, for the simple reason that the daily morning expectation of the sun is of a nature that has no room for scientific proofs. When we wait for the sun to rise, we never do it on the strength of scientific insight. It will be objected that men have become habituated to the regularity of these phenomena, as though the habitual went without saying, as though it were understood, as though there could be anything habitual without habitation, as though we had ever given thought to habitation. Now, if even the coming and going of the sun is such a rare and curious matter for us, how much more mysterious will matters be in that realm where that which must be thought withdraws from man, and, at the same time, in its withdrawal, comes to him? This and this alone is why we say, then, that what gives us most food for thought is that we are still not thinking. This means, insofar as we are at all, we are already in a relatedness to what gives food for thought. Even so, in our thinking, we have still not come to what is most thought-provoking. Nor can we know by ourselves whether we will get there. Accordingly, our assertion is not optimistic either, nor does it hang suspended in indecision between pessimism and optimism, for then it would have to reckon with both and thereby basically adopt their ways of reckoning. The key in which our assertion is tuned cannot, then, be determined simply like that of an ordinary statement. Therefore, it will be well to give thought not only to the key note of our assertion, but also to its character as a statement.